Today we're talking Xert. I've done a few videos about Xert, and they've been among my most popular videos and most requested videos, so I thought I'd turn to Xert again, mainly because I was curious about what my Xert numbers look like on this particular group ride, which is the Pop A, and which I've named this video affectionately Renner Road Purgatory. So Renner Road is the last road that we take going into the finish of this ride. It's usually the hardest part of the ride. You've got some fatigue in the legs going into this, and it's usually the part where it really turns into a hammerfest. So this is going to create fatigue. This is going to drive down my maximum power available, and if I do it right, push me to the limit, allow me to get some work in and some adaptation. So some of you are going to be familiar with Xert and the concepts behind it. Others of you might not be. So let me briefly introduce what this maximum power available thing is. And you can see in the top left of the overlay, the MPA up there stands for maximum power available. What that means is that's the amount of power available to me at this particular moment to put out in the context of what I've been doing beforehand. So right now I have about 1,130 watts that I can put out at this moment, which is reduced from my maximum available power, which is somewhat just over 1,200 watts according to my current fitness signature. What this means is as I build up fatigue, as I'm going harder, that MPA number will drop and I'll have less power to put out that I can put out. And of course, you know this when you're riding. You know if I'm tired, I'm not going to be able to go quite as explosively. When I'm resting, that MPA number will go back up. And if I rest enough, it'll go back up to the maximum. If I don't go above my threshold, if I stay below my threshold, most likely my MPA is not going to reduce at all. So in other words, if my threshold is about 290 watts currently, and I'm going at 220 watts, my MPA will be at maximum. In other words, I can put out that full amount of power. So that's a little bit of an introduction. You can use that MPA actually on your Garmin. You can be watching it in real time and see how much you have left in the tank. Now, if I'm smart, I'll link a video, my first video showing an Xert power overlay, an Xert MPA overlay in a race, and I'll link to that at the bottom so that you can get a more thorough explanation of MPA and Xert. Anyway, let's get back into the ride right now. We're on Renner Road, and this is an incline, and I've got to really dig right now to stay on Sam's wheel. The elastic almost broke there. And you can see just for a moment, I was putting out my maximal watts as per what Xert says I'm able to do. And this has driven down my MPA such that it's now below 1,000. You can see the counterattacks going up the left. And, you know, I'm on a good wheel right now. I'm on Sam's wheel. Sam is an excellent Masters cyclist. He won the Texas Cup for 40 plus last year in Texas, meaning that he got the most points of any 40 plus racer in Texas. So that's a great achievement, and he is a very talented, strong cyclist with a diverse array of weapons that he can employ at any time. He's got a pretty good kick, and he's got a great FTP, and he's lighter than me. So anyway, we're stopped at a light for just a moment, and we'll be going downhill. And usually it's not that hard going downhill here. In other words, guys don't push it too hard. Once we go down the hill, there'll be a slight incline, kind of like a false flat, a little bit more than a false flat, 1 to 2%. And that's where I usually like to go to the front and do my own interval. Go hard there. And so let's see what we're doing now. So we're going easy here. I'm freewheeling. And by the way, the watts, the power up there in the overlay, the second number from the left, it's a little bit different how Xert calculates that. In other words, I looked at both overlays, my Garmin overlay compared to my Xert power overlay, and they look a little bit different. And I think it's because the Xert overlay is like a 5-second average on the watts. I'm not certain, but it's more of a average than an instantaneous power. Anyway, as you can see, the wind is coming from the left to the right. We are headed west, so the wind's coming from the south, from the left here. So pretty much in the gutter here, all the way next to the curb or close to it, trying to stay out of the wind a little bit. And again, my MPA is below maximum by about 100 watts. And I'll be soon going towards the front. Here we are. Guy making a move to the left. Now there's some guys off the front currently. Here's my teammate John. Take a quick look back. Make sure I'm not going to crash out anyone and hop onto John's wheel and get a ride past everyone. We're in the wind here. In other words, the wind's coming, from our left. And now we're scooted over to the right. The guy in the front was not sheltering John per se, but staying over to the gutter. And usually we don't stay towards the gutter, typically on this ride. In other words, it would be to our advantage in a race situation to totally, be near that gutter with John giving me just enough room to get some shelter from him, kind of like is going on now. But usually we don't do that on this ride just because it's a group ride. And so I'm going to the front now. John's pulled in front of another teammate, Lynn, to give him shelter. And I'm pulled over to the left. So one, to give John shelter, and two, just to be courteous to everyone behind me, and number three, to have space to go here. So this is where I'm going hard. And you can watch the MPA in the upper left and the watts to the right of that. And you will see eventually here that they coincide with each other. Now, when they coincide and when you surpass your MPA, in other words, your watts go higher than your MPA, that's when you can achieve a breakthrough, a fitness breakthrough. In other words, you broke the model, thus the model must change. And when the model changes, that means your fitness signature goes up. There are 3 parts of a fitness signature in Xert, and I won't go into that, but one of them is your FTP. Well, I guess I am going into it. One of them is your high intensity energy. That's essentially how much money you have in the bank. And one of them is your peak power, which is the maximum amount of power that you can put out. So that's what can change when you do that. So, well, while I was talking, this is the really hard part right here. Right here, I was above my MPA when I was tired from taking my pull and drifting backwards, but still having to go fast, and now trying to slide into the slipstream of the group while accelerating, and that was hard. That was really hard. I don't think I was at my strongest tonight. Don't know why. Maybe from the workout I did the night before. I'm also on a bike that's new to me, and I'm not fitted to it. I just did my own adjustments. So anyway, I'm not at my best, but this was good. I feel like when you're kind of at your limit and you have to dig just a little bit more, to me, that's money in the bank. That's where you're going to create some adaptation, and that's what happened right there. When I take a pull, guys go around. Sam went around me when my watts started falling from the low 400s into the 330, 320 watt range, and that's when the group blew past me. The efforts going into that beforehand had, to some extent, limited my ability to put out watts at that particular moment, at that time. In other words, if we had just rolled really slowly the whole time, relatively slowly, we never roll really slowly, but I would have been able to put out a lot more power in that particular interval / pull. And again, just, it's not going to get too exciting from here on out. That was the greatest amount of power. But even here, my MPA's in the low 400s. That's pretty low. That means I am really exhausted right now. I'm not going to be able to put in an attack. You don't go off the front with an attack when you have 400 watts in the bank. So here, since we're going to hit this light and I didn't edit it out, I'm going to put the overlay, what it looks like when you are in the Xert website, and you can see what sort of this you can graphically see over time what happens with the MPA. So the MPA is this blue line, and you can see over time here through the interval that I went through in the course of this video, that when I took that pull, my MPA started falling quite dramatically, and I had efforts near MPA manifested by those yellow dots. And a green dot, I think, indicates, yeah, best effort, meaning that was where I got closest to a fitness breakthrough. But the green round dot is not a breakthrough effort. It would be the green diamond. So maybe if I'd gone a little bit harder, I could have, quote unquote, broken the model and had a fitness breakthrough. But I was close. And you can see after a race or after a ride, well, how hard did I really go? Sometimes you'll think you went really hard, and you'll look at this graph and you'll see that actually you didn't even come close to breaking the model. And other times, you know, you go really hard and you do get a fitness breakthrough. And that can be a good measure. So another thing, instead of doing FTP testing, for example, which sucks and is boring and nobody likes to do, I think, you can go really, really hard on a group ride, and that can help determine what your FTP is in the Xert model. In other words, you don't need to do FTP testing. And I think it's pretty accurate, this Xert model. So we're just headed to basically what will be the end of the ride here for me towards City Line in Richardson. And some guys are going to fire off here. Guys have already fired off, or will soon fire off, and I don't really do anything at this point. You can see after I've rested, you know, at the light, now my maximum power available is over 1,000 again. And that's just the nature of rest. You've got a few more matches that you can put in. The analogy I use is like a sink. With a sink, water is always going in. It's a matter of how much water is draining out and how fast you drain the water out of the sink. If the water in the sink represents your energy, the faster you go, like in a sprint, you're draining a lot of water out very quickly. If you're not, then you're draining a little bit of water every time you go over FTP. And the more you rest, the more the sink fills back up. So the sink is gradually here going up to the full level. Anyway, this has been an explanation of Xert, showing you an overlay in real time in a tough group ride for me of how that works and what it looks like. So there it is. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you'd like to see more of these kinds of videos, let me know in the comments. Or if you have a specific request of what kind of video you would want with Xert, let me know. And I'm not the world's greatest expert on this, but I might know a little bit more than some. So if I can be of use, let me know. Thanks.